Okay, without further ado, let me introduce our first guest, the director of Ghost in the Shell. Give it up for Rupert Saunders. Hello, Rupert.
Hello.
Please have a seat.
I feel like I should be an MMA fighter after that. I'm just like a normal guy in a suit.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so welcome to Japan.
Thank you.
Is this your first time here?
No, I've been here a few times.
I see, okay. And tell us about your visit here and the relevance of having this event, this press release here in Tokyo.
I think really the first thing that we wanted to do when we launched the film was to come to the birthplace of the film, to show both the creators, the people who really started the whole thing going, that we were taking this next chapter of the legacy very seriously, and that it wasn't going to be something they'd be upset about, they'd be very proud of. So it was important for us to come here and say, this is what we've done, this is what we're doing. We're not remaking, we're reimagining, but we're reimagining with you, alongside you, and it's a great honor and privilege to work with some of these people. It's great to hear Kenji this evening, and that really to me is what's so great about what we did tonight, is to be able to hear the original score with our new shelling sequence. So it's a real, the next chapter.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ghost in the Shell, it's a classic, it's an icon. What does it mean to you, and what do you plan to bring it, what have you brought into your vision of this piece?
Well, from Shiro's manga to Oshi's anime to Kamiyama's standalone complex, I didn't really have to do anything. I just stole from all of them and put it together, and off we go. So my job was very easy. No, in seriousness, it's been to draw on something as seminal as that. I was a fan growing up, so to me it was an honor to take that stuff, and I tried to, my litmus test was, do I like what I'm doing? My gut check, and if I was kind of inspired by it, then it kind of stayed in the film.
Mm-hmm. I see. Now, GITS, Ghost in the Shell, it's been some time since it first appeared in the manga. But what would you say is the relevance of Ghost in the Shell today?
I think in '95, for me, first seeing Oshi's film was so ahead of its time, and I think really some of those ideas are just catching up to us today. I think there's so many elements of when we are consumed by technology to the degree we are, where does humanity sit in that new kind of technological order? We trust so much into our devices. As you can see, everyone's deviced up. We tell people where we are, what we buy, what we shop, who we talk to. And that goes somewhere, and I think what Ghost says, there's a ghost of information and technology out there, and one of the points of the film and one of the points of the manga and the anime was trusting in technology. And I think to me the thing that I try to kind of transmit through the film is that there's hope in technology. It's not an evil thing. It's something that if we parent it right, it will be part of us as humans, and we won't be obsolete.
How would you describe the world that you created in Ghost in the Shell?
I think we set about trying to create a very original take on the film. I think it's the thing that most people, when they see it, are surprised about. It's very emotional. It's a very action-packed film. It's got a lot of crazy environments. It's a future we haven't seen before, but ultimately it's the journey of a character who's trying to find herself. At first, she's a human brain in a machinate body, so she's trying to come to terms with technologically what that is. But ultimately, as the film moves forward, she's trying to understand not just what she is, but who she is.
I see. How much influence has the source material been on making the version of GITS? I thought the opening was just like incredible. It was, a real feature, a live feature of the opening.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many. As a fan myself, there's so many things in that film that I wanted to, personally bring to life. It was fairly selfish endeavor. I love that so much, and I was able to draw from so many great bits of inspiration. I think, you know, we wanted to make we wanted to bring Ghost to a huge audience. We wanted to bring it to a global audience, but we didn't want to water it down. We wanted to keep those themes, keep those ideas, keep the cyberpunk aesthetic to it very much alive. And I think Scarlett as the Major really channels that attitude and that edge that I think is so much part of her as an actress.
I see. Again, this is a classic in the genre. Did you feel pressure in making this into a film?
You feel pressure making any film, I tell you. It's not. It's all very glamorous when you're here, but most of our lives is spent in the pouring rain and the mud. But I won't complain. What was the question?
Pressure.
Pressure,
yes.
pressure. It's got to me. Yeah, you know, whenever you're doing something in the public eye, and it's a very cherished film, and you have to kind of silence it. Really, you know, you can't read the blogs and take it at face value. You just have to say, I'm lucky enough to be in this position to do this job. I feel very strongly about the legacy of Ghost. I'm the next part of that chapter, and hopefully, you know, a very long continuing story through the franchise of Ghost in the Shell, which is already a huge universe. So yes, I felt pressure, but you always feel pressure as an artist creatively in any endeavor you do. So you just have to do the best that you can do and hope that is successful.
What did you feel the most? I'm sure you had a set of aesthetics dealing with this. What is one point that you really wanted to come across as far as the spirit of the work?
I think that the tone of, you know, it's hard when you take something like an anime or a comic book or a manga from the page or from the animated frame into cinema. It's a bumpy transition a lot of the time, and I think there's successful cases and not such successful cases. But to me, again, it was strong source material to work with. It was really just a question of tone and the attitude of the film that I was just trying to maintain. That is that Ghost in the Shell. When you're looking at casting, is that Ghost in the Shell? You're looking at a location, is that Ghost in the Shell? You know, we designed the world from shoes up. You know, there was a lot of kind of source material to work with, obviously, but then it's like, well, how do you bring that to life? And it doesn't feel strange because it's being photographed. There's a difficulty when you go from a comic book or anime to the cinema.
Right, I see. Now let's talk about the casting, especially with Scarlett playing the role of Major. How did this come about?
To me, you know, when I cast very much from the gut, and I think I was very lucky to be able to get an amazing international cast of people that I've always really wanted to work with. Scarlett was one of those people, and to me, there's very few actresses who've had 20 years experience who have the cyberpunk aesthetic already baked in. You know, she comes from such edgy films, from Lost in Translation to Under the Skin. You know, she's got an incredible body of work, and the attitude and the kind of toughness of her really is, to me, the Major. But also what she's done incredibly in this film is she's playing an android. She's a synthetic body with a human mind inside. She did an incredible job of nuancing the human, kind of evolving through the machine. And in a way, I think why it's very relative to a large audience, it's kind of a coming-of-age story, and it's a realization of I am what I am. Whatever's happened to me, good or bad, that is the sum of who I am now.
I see. Now, some people, of course, it was anime and you brought it to real life. Some people might be critical about the casting of Scarlett as the Major. What do you have to say to that?
I think whenever you cast someone, someone's going to be critical about it. I mean, to me, it was, you know, I stand by my decision. She's the best actress of her generation, and I was flattered and honored that she would be in this film. And I think, you know, so many people who are around the original anime have been vehemently in support of her because she's incredible, and there are very few like her.
I see. Now, did you know of Beat Takeshi?
Come on, you can clap. She's coming out later. She'd want a warm house.
Now, let's talk about Beat Takeshi. Did you know of him before you cast him as Aramaki?
Yeah, very much so. I grew up on Hannah B, Sonatine, Outrage. I was, you know, I guess to me, cinematically, he was a huge part of my growth as a filmmaker, kind of early on, just watching those films, being like, you know, where did those come from? And I saw so much of his work had been echoed in other films that came over to the West, and it's always great. It's like finding a hip-hop track, and then you find the rhythm from like an obscure kind of 60s hippie band. You're like, wow, that's incredible. And it was kind of the same with Takeshi. It's like, God, I've seen all that stuff before, and that's where it comes from.
Okay, so he's like the motherlode almost.
Yeah. He's an incredible, you know, and when I was lucky enough to be approached about this, you know, Aramaki, there was no one else who could play Aramaki. It took a while to get Mr. Katana to sign on the dotted line. I had to chase him across the world to get the paw print, but I got it in the end.
But you got your guy.
I got him in the end, yeah, and he does a wonderful job in the film. And I think what's amazing is he speaks Japanese through the film, and Scarlett as Major speaks English. It's a beautifully tender kind of fatherly relationship, and again, it's, you know, it just goes to the emotional strength of the film and the kind of the legacy and the heritage of this being a Japanese property that's now a global manifesto.
I see.